Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining our webinar, Getting Started with AI, What Teachers Need to Know Today. We'll do a quick introduction, then we'll dive right in. So first off, a couple key takeaways for today's section. We have the first is to demystify AI, so you will feel more confident discussing it with colleagues and students. Second takeaway is to understand how AI-powered educational tools actually work behind the scenes. And third, be better equipped to make informed decisions about using AI in your classroom. So by the end of this hour session, hopefully that you'll feel comfortable and confident with all three of those key takeaways. Also, before we dive too deep into our agenda and do some introductions, we did want to make sure that everybody gets credit for this. So whether you're here live with us today, or if you're watching this on the archive, when you go to the IBM Skills Build module with this, you're going to click on Enroll, and then that will make sure that you're enrolled in the program, and you can mark as complete and get your certificate at the end of this. We'll also be sharing our contact information, so if you have any trouble accessing your certificate or getting credit for today's session, feel free to reach out to us at any time, and we can certainly help you get access to it. And since we're talking about this, we also provide live training options for schools as part of this program. So you can also reach out to us at any time following today to see how you can also sign up for some live virtual or even on-site training as part of this program. Okay, so really quick intro. My name, again, is Tom Driscoll. I'm the CEO of EdTech Teacher. I was a former high school social studies teacher in two different public school districts in Connecticut. I then became a digital learning director at a regional school district in Rhode Island, and most recently came over as the owner and CEO of EdTech Teacher. My focus and research interests are empowering teachers with technology, AI in education, project-based learning, and then one of my passion projects is civics education. That's one of the things I truly believe in, is having a strong civic education across the nation. All right, and then I'm going to kick it over to my colleague, Catherine Atkinson.
Hi everyone, my name is Catherine Atkinson. I am a former middle school teacher, department chair, technology coordinator, spent a lot of years loving being in the classroom. And then with a geographical move from California to Michigan, I'm on part two of my career. So I'm now working with EdTech Teacher, doing wonderful trainings and making courses and things like that. I also dabble in research with program evaluation and things like that. And my focus is meaningful learning with technology. So anything that I do, I always want to bring it back to, well, how's it going to move the needle for students in terms of engagement and being able to demonstrate mastery of these important content and standards that we want them to learn.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Catherine. And I could ask for no other better person to be presenting today with than Catherine. She is amazing. We presented a lot in the past and really knows her stuff from experience in the classroom, right? Not just knowing about teaching, but being an educator. A little bit about us, and then as I mentioned, we'll dive in. So who is EdTech Teacher? Well, we actually started way back in 2008, and our mission has always been and continues to be helping educators, right? So we want to help you become more confident and comfortable using educational technologies to do what you do, which is be a great teacher. So what we actually do is design and deliver professional development training for school districts. We provide events, and we also partner with educational technology groups and businesses to help them design and also just scale out their professional development to help as many teachers as possible. So that's what we do. That's what we've been doing for years, and that's why we're here today, to help everybody else with some of these AI topics. All right, so we're actually going to start with a very quick poll. So for those who are viewing live, I'm going to launch this one in the chat. So if you had a teaching assistant that could instantly generate differentiated learning path for every student in class, so let's just say everybody had that for them, what would you do with that extra time? All right, so everyone that's been in the classroom, that's been a teacher, knows that one of the most scarce resources in education is time, right? So we desperately are short of time. So what would you do if you had some of that extra time? All right, so you guys another chance to dive into that. All right. And for those of you that are watching this on the archive, just kind of think through yourself. I'm sure you've been in that scenario where maybe it's a Sunday afternoon, you have a ton of stuff to do to get ready for the next week, or maybe you're in the middle of a week and things are just kind of going at warp speed. What are some things that you would actually do in the class? And I think once we go through this session, you're going to get some ideas on, oh, wow, these are some tools that can help me get some of that time back, as well as some other practical use cases. But keep that question in mind. And actually, like to take a look at the poll here and see what, oops, I have to come back to that after, I guess. Trying to see what the poll questions will. We'll take a look at what those responses were a little bit later in our session. All right, so in a little bit more detail, some of our learning objectives. The first is we're going to define artificial intelligence and differentiate it from traditional computer programs. Second, we're going to identify practical ways that AI is already being used in schools and classrooms and articulate why this matters for education. Then we're going to assess AI tools to determine what might work for your teaching practice. So why do we need to know about AI? I'm actually going to kick this section over to Catherine.
All right, so this is and whenever we do these kind of workshops, I think Tom and I are of the same mindset. It's always getting back to the well, why? Why are we here telling you this? Why do we think it's important? I mean, we're both former educators, and I think we were drawn to the why as well whenever you're talking about changes and it's kind of figuring out like what does this mean for me? So what I wanted to share is, and this needs to go to the next slide. So the fact is that students are already using AI. So regardless if you want them to use it or not, they're still using it. And then there's been some research. So there's one that's actually cited in our slides here. So 70% of K-12 students have a favorable view of using AI chatbots. So they seem to see that as a positive experience. And according to that same study, 48% of students report using chatbots at least once a week. So the fact is it's not this future what if, it's actually happening right now. So the question that we need to figure out is how do we guide them to use it responsibly, right? That goes with any type of tech tool that we introduced in the classroom, but this one in particular because there's so many unknowns and they're coming at us very quickly. So on the next slide, I'll talk about another poll that was done by the Pew Research Center. And so in this poll here, it's actually saying, and they have data from 2023 and also 2024. So in the 2024 data, they've seen a quarter of the U.S. teens admitted to using ChatGPT for schoolwork. That was actually doubled within just 1 year. And those are actually the ones that were only honest about it, right? I mean, some of them may not have even admitted that they did use ChatGPT for schoolwork. And then the data from that survey, they broke it down by ethnicity. It seems that the Black and Hispanic teens were most likely to use ChatGPT over everyone else. And then the students in the higher grades, so high school, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, tended to use ChatGPT more often. So I just want to make it really clear. This was the case last year. So this is data from 2024. So just stop for a moment and consider the percentage of students that are likely using AI for schoolwork today. So this is part of the why are we doing this webinar is we want to make sure that you as teachers are feeling comfortable with what AI is and what it can and cannot do. That way, when your students are using it in the classroom or when you're integrating it into the classroom, you have a better idea of, well, how is this tool going to work? All right, so I think we're going to now move on to the next one. So I'm going to hand it over back to Tom.
Yep, thank you, Catherine. So we know that students are using it. These tools are out there, but what is it? So we're going to take a step back and just make sure that everybody has a strong understanding of what is AI, particularly generative AI, and what has changed in the past few years. One of our co-founders from MIT, Justin Wright, I'm going to give him a shout out. Him and his team framed this not as a rollout technology, right? So in schools, we typically roll out a technology over a certain amount of time. He was saying like this just arrived. This is an arrival technology, and that put a lot of stress on school districts across the world, frankly, because it just happened. A lot of people weren't quite prepared. So what is it that we're even talking about when we talk about AI in education? So the first point is that it's not a new technology particularly. It actually goes back to the 1950s. So there's actually an incredible course within IBM Skills Build, which I highly recommend checking out. It's AI Fundamentals, and they actually go through the history of AI. It's quite fascinating. And some of the content from the next few slides is from that. But the 1950s is when artificial intelligence first started. That's human intelligence exhibited by machines. So think like the Turing test and when they were coming up with some of those ideas. Then machine learning really started to take off in the 1980s. So that's where AI systems could learn from historical data. Then fast forward to the 2010s. That's when machine learning models that mimic human brain function started to come out. You may be familiar with like when Watson was on Jeopardy, right? So that's when a lot of those tools started to get developed. And then the 2020s, really what we're living through right now has been the generative AI revolution. And that's where deep learning models or foundational models are creating original content. So that's the historical trajectory. And if you were just to think about what is it in general that we're discussing, AI refers to the ability of a machine to learn patterns and make predictions. That's a big part of this. So if you understand the idea of an AI tool, particularly generative AI tools, making predictions as they create, you'll have a much better understanding of how these tools work. It does not replace human decisions. That's the other misconception with this. It adds value to human judgment. And part of our webinar series, we're going to come back to this later this year, is about responsible use of AI. And part of that is understanding, how do we leverage AI as part of our own human judgment, right? That's a big part of this. And when we talk about some of the frameworks for ethical and responsible AI use, that's a huge part of this is understanding how they work, but also how does it integrate with our own value judgments and how we're using these tools. In its simplest form, it's a field that combines computer science and robust data sets to solve problems, right? So that's more of the scientific version of it. But again, AI is a field that combines computer science, data sets to solve problems. So one of the topics you're going to come across when you start to study AI is machine learning. And that's a branch of AI. And what that does is that focuses on enabling computers to do three things. It can imitate the way that humans learn. It can perform tasks autonomously, and it improves its performance and accuracy through experience and exposure to more data. That's where the learning comes in, right? As it has these experiences and it learns from the data, it gets more accurate. The next phase of this is deep learning, and that's another subset of machine learning. So, what deep learning does is that uses multi layered neural networks to simulate the complex decision making power of the human brain. And I was fortunate to meet a professor recently over at Brown, and he's actually a cognitive science researcher. And he actually works very closely with the AI researchers. And the reason why is because they ask him questions about how the brain functions, because in a way, that's how they modeled how a lot of the AI functions. So it's really fascinating how they've kind of crossed over between those two different fields of study. But anyway, when you hear the idea of neural network, that's how a lot of these technologies are designed, and they're actually modeled after human cognition. So just to back up, we use the nesting dolls analogy. So you have the first is the artificial intelligence as a field. Then you have machine learning as a subset of AI. Then you have deep learning as a subset of machine learning. So really, when we discuss deep learning and machine learning, it's all within the field of AI. It's just a more specific branch of it that we are discussing. And that brings us to generative AI. So why did we go through that whole whole process? Well, because generative AI is a type of AI that creates. Right? So think of it as a creation tool. It can create text, it can create images, video, audio, software code, things that we haven't even really thought of yet, in response to a prompt or a request. And later on this year too, we'll also talk about large language models and how that really opened things up. Just so, like putting an interface onto one of the original versions of ChatGPT, just the ability to talk with it is what made this whole thing really take off in late 2022. So it relies on deep learning models that simulate learning and human decision making. And coupled with a large language model, that's what allows us to have those conversations. So what does that actually look like in practice? You've probably seen AI used in various different scenarios in society. So what does it look like in society, but then also what does it look like in the classroom? Because as we've learned for the past few years, particularly educators across the world have been experimenting with use cases. We're going to get into that in much more depth later in the webinar. But first is the creation tools, right? So say a company uses an AI tool to create online content or to bolster their online content. Well, a teacher could also use some of those same tools to create lesson materials for class. Say they're in the real world, they're using a tool to design, right? So designing art for a new clothing line. Well, teacher could also use some of those same design tools to help bring projects to life in the classroom. If you think about communication tools, there's AI chatbots that provide 24/7 customer support. There are AI tutors out there that teachers can actually customize and design for their students that can help answer certain questions or help them solve problems related to something they worked on in class. And then lastly, optimizing. So say AI can help a developer streamline the coding process. Well, AI can quickly help administrators quickly draft and optimize their communication strategies. I've even seen some school leaders use this to optimize things like bus routes or lining up for the bus after school, right? So there's a lot of practical ways that you can use AI just to optimize your current workflows in a school. So we'll go into many more examples later, but just as a quick taste of generative AI is out there in the world. We're using it across industries and society in all different ways. And people are also using this in many different ways in the classroom as well. Now I'm going to kick it to Catherine, and she's going to discuss a bit about the difference between AI and traditional computer programming. Audio, Catherine.
Sorry. Okay, so thanks, Tom. So I'm going to use the analogy of a recipe because I think that it'll make a little bit more sense. So just think about like you're a chef and you're asked to make a classic chocolate cake. So traditional computer programming is like following a recipe from a step book. I'm sorry, from a cookbook. So you're following every single step. So if it tells you to add 2 cups of flour, you do that. If it tells you to whisk it for 60 seconds, you do that. If it tells you to bake it at 350 for 30 minutes, you do that. So with the recipe, the computer is telling you every single step that you need to do in order to get the classic chocolate cake. Now, if you forgot to, tell it to preheat the oven, the computer's not going to know to do that because this step-by-step process. Now, in thinking about the traditional versus the generative AI, with the artificial AI, what we're looking at is the concept of like this world famous chef telling you that you're going to make a chocolate cake, but the chef is giving you all these options to choose from. So you can choose, I mean, you're using the basics, right? Like flour, eggs, and whatever, but you can add in vanilla, you can add in fruit or whatever you want to do. So the chef encourages you to add your own twist, and then you experiment with making a variety of different versions of the chocolate cake until you get the perfect one. So in this case, the AI would look at all the different examples, analyzing ingredients, and figures out the best way to make the classic chocolate cake. You don't have to tell it exactly step by step what to do. So the AI will learn what works and what doesn't. So all you have to do is just give it the goal, the ingredients, which would be the data, and then it figures out the effective recipe on its own. So why does this difference even matter? Like, why do we need to know the difference between traditional computer programming and AI? The reason is because AI doesn't just follow orders. So a traditional computer program would follow step by step, but an AI is more like a student. So you give it a bunch of examples in the forms of data, right? And it learns to find patterns, and then it emits a response or an output. So an AI-powered tool can adapt to each student, offering a level of personalization that, a rigid traditional computer program couldn't. The second reason is AI can be and is unpredictable. So because AI learns from data, it can sometimes produce unexpected results. So it could be biased, it could be inaccurate, it could be incomplete, it could be nonsensical. So a traditional computer program wouldn't do that. It's always going to produce the exact same result, but with AI, because it's got this data, it's going to produce things that we have to know as educators that it may not be exactly what we want it to do. Okay, so we have have to learn how to prompt it. We have to learn how to make those revisions to get the output that we want. The third one is that AI use does change your role. So if as an educator, you actually as an educator, we think it's important that you understand that AI is a learning tool rather than a rule following one. So you are the curator of the data. You are the one that's determining what goes into the AI in terms of not the data, but the prompt itself, so that you can manipulate it and so that the response that the AI gives you is something that's going to be useful for you. Now, Tom did talk before about the humans in the loop idea, and we're going to come back to this multiple times throughout this webinar series, is the idea of human-centered AI. So it starts with you, then you use the AI to create some type of output or generate some type of output, and then you bring yourself back in or you bring your peers back in. So it's this humans in the loop. So it's not just AI and that's it. It's just that we are the decision makers. We get to determine if any revisions need to be made, how to revise it to make it work for our particular school, our particular population, whatever our learning needs are. All right, so now we're going to move on to, well, how does the AI learn? And in the IBM Skills Build program that Tom talked about, they really go into the weeds of it. So if that's your jam, I mean, I say go for it. It's really informative, but we're going to take a very simplistic view on how the AI learning process works. Okay, so in the next slide, we're going to use just an easy example, dogs versus cats. So with traditional, computer programming, we would just have to tell the computer, what a cat looks like, what a dog looks like, right? So if whiskers, then a cat, if floppy ears, then a dog. But with AI, with the training model, what we're doing is we're providing that data and the AI is learning from that data. So we would give it examples that are similar to a cat and it's going to learn that, oh, there's different versions of what a cat can look like. It could be a kitten, it could be, a calico, it could be whatever. The same thing goes with a dog. So it's learning the different breeds of the dog, what a puppy might look like, what a German Shepherd might look like. And then when you're still doing the training, then you want to add in like another variable. So this one might be, well, if you're looking on the screen, this is a bear, right? So if we were training cat versus dog, but the AI gets that picture, it's not gonna, it has to think because it's not obvious. Is it a cat versus a dog? It might say it's a cat, it might say it's a dog, or it might say, I don't even know what it is. So the point is the power of machine learning is in its ability to learn from the data, but the knowledge or its knowledge is limited to the data it was trained on. So it's only as good as the data that it has in its use. All right. So what are the educational implications of this? We just have to remember that AI is an adaptive learning platform that can learn a student's strengths and their weaknesses to provide personalized practice and or feedback. And we're going to come back to this idea later on when we talk about classroom use cases. So why does knowing this matter? So we're going back to the why. So understanding how AI learns will help teachers like yourself identify and evaluate the potential biases and limitations of the tool. And right now we're sort of talking about you as a teacher doing this, but it's also important to make sure that your students will also need to develop these same skills, right? Because we know students are using it in their classroom. We know that they're probably using it, outside of the four walls of our schools as well. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that input directly influences the output. So the quality and nature of the input data directly influences the AI's output. So the data that the AI has been trained on, it's inherently biased. I mean, it comes from the data that it can grab from the internet. So it's got this very strong, English speaking, Western bias in the knowledge, reasonings, and perspectives. And so even though that is going to affect the output, that's actually a good learning opportunity for students in terms of trying to figure out whose voices are missing, what are the biases that are apparent in the responses. So even though it's a challenge because the responses may not be entirely perfect, it's actually a great teaching moment and a great learning moment for students. Okay, so this brings us back to the human-centered AI. So, and we want to make sure that we are constantly emphasizing it. The AI does not replace you as a teacher. The idea of a human-centered AI means that it starts with human input or inquiry, and then it proceeds to the AI product or the output. So we put what we want, we use the prompt, put it into the AI. tool itself, whether it's a question or whatever we want it to do. And then when the AI provides the output or the response, we reflect on, well, what did we receive? And then maybe determine next steps for learning. Do we refine the prompt? Do we bring in our other colleagues and discuss this, the AI's response? And then how can we, revise it and make it work for our individual school's needs? So just want to reiterate, it starts and ends with humans in control. All right, so now let's take a look at how AI is transforming today's classroom. So now we're going to get into the practical ways that we are seeing AI being used. So, oh yeah, let's go ahead and start with actually a poll. Thanks, Tom. So the poll is, how have you used AI in education? I believe we made it multiple response, so you can choose more than one. So I'll pause and
Mhm.
let you choose. And if you're watching after the after this live session, just take a moment and see if is it you haven't yet? Is it that you've used it for lesson planning, resource creation, assessments, and or feedback, communication, or maybe other that we didn't necessarily list on there?
Excellent. Yeah. So for the folks that are in our live session right now, it actually looks like the two that are used the most are the lesson planning and resource creation, as well as communication. So those seem to be ones that are really popping as ones that folks use a lot. And if you're viewing the archive, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it on this recording, but the three different buckets that we provided were lesson planning and resource creation, assessments and feedback, and communication. Those tend to be the three main use cases we see, but there's, of course, so many more out there. I'm also going to try to share the results. Looks like, Catherine, you're able to see the results there on the slide.
Um, I I can see the rules, but I could also see when they were doing it live, so I'm not sure what the participant view is. But hopefully you could see the results on your end. Those of you that
All
are
right. So
watching.
thanks for sharing, folks that are here live. And then I'm going to kick it back to Catherine to start our next section.
Okay, so when in terms of thinking about, well, how is AI transforming today's classrooms? I do want to just start off with the idea that AI is helping to personalize the learning experience for students. So it's framing AI as a helper, right? It's not taking over your job. It's not doing the job for students. It's actually assisting students. So a great example of how AI can help personalize the learning experience is Conmigo, which is an AI tutoring tool. I'm sure all of you have heard of Khan Academy. So Conmigo is their tutoring assistant, and they have a variety of different ways that Conmigo can be used. So the one I am showing right now is how Conmigo can be used as a writing tutor. So in this particular lesson here, it's about writing an essay. And I do have a couple of screenshots that Tom's gonna click through. So if you're a student, you're using Conmigo, you get this assignment from your teacher about writing an essay, Romeo and Juliet, um, you know, kind of thing. So a student can actually have a conversation with Conmigo and they can ask any type of question that they want. Now, the thing about Conmigo that I really like is it doesn't give students the answers. It will prompt the students, it'll push the question back on them, but it's not going to give the students the answer. So it's in this kind of like walled garden. So it's not like they can go to ChatGPT and say, hey, write this essay for me. Conmigo will actually push back and tell them, that's not what I'm here for. This is what I need you to do. So in the next screenshot, because I did want to show you what can happen. So a student can ask the question, what does set the stage mean, which is a legit question. I'm sure some students won't exactly know what that means. So here Conmigo is providing, context to what does that mean and why is that important for formulating your essay. So in the next screenshot, I've asked a question. Can you just give me my first sentence? Because students are going to do that, right? Just give me the start and then I can go on. And then notice Conmigo's response. I can't provide specific sentences, but I can help guide you. So this is actually the kind of AI tool that is really useful because think of it as a teacher. I mean, you can't have 36 kids asking you this question, right? But you can use a AI tutoring tool like this that can provide students this one-on-one help, and then you can go around, monitor, maybe sit down with a couple of students, do a small group thing. But this actually takes a little bit of the workload off of your shoulders within a walled garden because students aren't going to get the answers from Conmigo. All right, so that was a little, and it's also available 24/7. So it's not like, students only can do it in the classroom. They can even use it at home, still within that safe area. All right, back to you, Tom.
Excellent. Thanks, Catherine. I do think the idea of AI tutors and personalized supports are incredibly helpful for students. But I also think that for some educators just getting started with this, maybe starting with using it yourself makes more sense, right? And we actually find that a lot of schools that we've been working with, a lot of teachers, really a good place to start is just how can AI help you teach, right? How can it help you teach better? Right. So I feel like as great as it is as a student tool right now in certain circumstances, I think starting with how can this help me do what I do best? How can this help me teach in certain ways? And how can it enhance my workflows in all different areas? I think if you start there, you'll actually find that your understanding of AI will increase tremendously because you're going to be using these tools as part of your workflow. So then when you need to model best practices for your students, it's just going to be much easier to translate some of those use cases. Okay, so what might you use as a teacher? There's a lot of tools out there. The ones that we're going to highlight for this part are Gemini and Google Classroom. Frankly, one of the main reasons we're going to highlight this is because of the accessibility, right? If you're a Google Apps for Education school district, you already have access to this for free as part of your license. There's no upgrades that you need. Anyone can use Gemini, and they also integrated it with Google Classroom. But just know for all of the following things that we're going to demonstrate, this is tool agnostic, right? So even the Khan Academy thing that Catherine just showed, there are a lot of tools out there and ways that you can set up like learning coaches and tutors. So really, we're showing you best practices and things you can try, but don't think that you have to just use one tool. These are just ways that you could use it. Okay, so speaking of that learning coach, right? If you're using a tool like Gemini or ChatGPT or in some cases Claude, um, what you can do is actually prompt it to do exactly what Catherine was showing about being a guide, being a learning coach. And there's actually a gem that you can use within Gemini which is basically a pre-built learning coach prompt that can actually walk you through how to do certain tasks. So as a teacher, you could also ask, all right, how could I teach this lesson differently? How could I use different resources? How could I reach this student that has an interest in this? So you can even use it to help coach yourself in instructional design. So a lot of different ways that you can do it. But that's one way to jump in. The other way is to just see all of the different possibilities. And what's nice is that as teachers across the world have been experimenting with generative AI over the past 3 years, a lot of companies and tools have been curating some of those best practices and turning them into modules. So, for instance, if you're like, what are some ways I could use AI as a teacher? If you just go to Gemini and Google Classroom, it'll actually give you a list of things you could try. So, for instance, I could just do a quick outline of a lesson plan. I could create a rubric. Actually, almost every school I go to, particularly at high schools, the teachers say, I use this to help me with my rubrics because that is a thing that can be kind of complex. And if you can have AI help you with that, that helps quite a bit. Leveling text is another excellent use case. So take a text that maybe is a little bit too tough for a student, or maybe you want to ramp things up or down, however you want to do it. Take any text and you can re-level it really quickly. One that I really like is the idea of compelling inquiry hooks. Right? I did a lot of project-based learning, and I always like to start class with something that would like really get excited about history, because let's face it, not a lot of kids are. So, what could be a compelling inquiry hook? So these are all different just use cases that you could go out and just start to experiment and to try with. Really think about this as an instructional design assistant. How can this help you design and come up with content as we go through these courses, we do go a little bit deeper into what are the types of things you can create. And is it about materials or ideas, right? So those are two different things. Like, is the AI helping me with creating materials, or is it giving me a new approach or a new idea or a new thing that I could try in the class? But the long story short is that all of these tools are now very accessible to teachers to get in and try, and there's zero cost to, if not most all of them that have that base model, you can go in and start trying right away. Now, for those who are experimenting with more advanced use cases of AI in the classroom, one change that I've seen really in the past 6 months is that we have a lot more control now over the content. So remember when Catherine was saying, how is AI, how does it learn a little bit differently than other tools? Well, it's based on what's in, like what data is it looking at? What is the stuff it's pulling from? So at the beginning, when ChatGPT first came out, some of those tools, there was a lot of hallucinations, a lot of things went haywire. Now you can actually create your own set of resources that the AI works off of. So if you've never seen Notebook LM before, this is an example of a tool where you can put in your sources on the left. So say there's curriculum resources or websites you trust or research studies, put them there. Then you can create materials, you can ask questions, you can design in that chat area. And then you can also create on the side in the studio. So you can create audio overviews, video overviews, mind maps. I feel like they're creating new variations of this all the time. But the reason I bring this up is that this is not just a chatbot, right? You're going in, you're curating resources, you're using them to create materials or to create ideas, and then you can even use those as instructional materials for your kids. The audio overview in the podcast is probably the most popular example of that. If you haven't tried it, it's worth it just to experience what that's like. But even something like the video overview that I could now go in, take a resource and create a really quick 3 to 5 minute overview video of that content for my students as a support on the fly in seconds. I mean, that is a really powerful tool for a teacher that can help them tailor content and information to their students in ways that maybe they haven't ever done before. Okay, so that is the Google Classroom piece. Now we're going to kick it over to Catherine to explore some of the creation and creativity tools that students can use and teachers.
Right. So I know that there's been some trepidation with the idea of, will AI take over creativity? And I can't say with definitive yes or no, but I mean, I know AI can empower students and teachers to be like creative content creators, right? So it's not actually doing the work for them. They have to come in with an idea. So in terms of Adobe Express, this is an example of how generative AI has the potential to support creativity and collaboration. So as you can see from the different pictures that are coming on there, Adobe Express can encourage and does encourage creativity. I use this a lot in the different things that I do. So I start with an idea and then I go in and I have Adobe Express try and make that idea come to life. So for students that might be stuck and they're not really sure where to start, as long as they have a couple words, they could go in, use a generative AI tool within Adobe Express, and they can start crafting an image that goes with what they're thinking about in their head. Now, Adobe Express also supports communication, so students can work together and collaborate on these together so they're not working in isolation, because we all know that communication and collaboration are both really important skills for students to practice. And within Adobe Express, it also can simplify complex tasks because it comes with great templates in there. It gives students guided practice, teachers guided practice on how to use this to come up with a lot of different ways to make learning engaging, fun, and meaningful. And it does really promote voice and choice, depending on, of course, I guess this could be said for any tech tool that we share. But this one can promote voice and choice if it's set up correctly, right? So if teachers put it out there and let students decide what they want to do, the modality that they want to use, whether it's video, image, text, or a combination of it. If they want to make a GIF, if they want to make a web page. But Adobe Express is a great starting point in terms of infusing creativity into whatever it is you want students to learn about in your classroom. All right, now I'm going to turn it back over to Tom with our next tech tool.
Thanks. And I just love the creation tools, and the one example I keep hearing every time I work with teachers is teachers are using it to help teach descriptive writing, right? And I'm like, at first I was like, wait a minute, generate images for creative writing, but it makes so much sense because if students want to create a really detailed image, they're gonna have really detailed writing to generate that image, right? So teachers are just finding incredibly creative ways to weave all of this together. So the last one we're going to highlight, and this is one where when I even mentioned the idea of AI as helping with student writing, like I can tell all the English teachers in the room are like, what? Because that's been one of the biggest challenges of students using this to just write stuff for them, which is not the point. But what we're seeing is that it can be an incredibly powerful tool for constructive feedback on your writing that can actually help enhance your writing. One example we're going to share is from a tool called Newsella Writing. And there's a few that are emerging out there now, but I think just as a proof of concept, if you're a student, you could go through and with a tool like this, it could immediately give you targeted feedback on your writing based on specific standards or skills you're working on that a teacher can tailor. And not only that, you could even have it give specific feedback to improve. So, say for instance, they didn't give enough evidence in this paragraph, it'll not only give them a nudge to add more evidence, but it will give them some strategies and some tactics to help enhance their writing. Now, I really loved teaching writing to my students, but I'll be the first to say when I had 130 essays handed in on a Friday afternoon, it's really hard to get specific targeted feedback to students in real time when you just get a stack of 300 pages. So this is a way that you can give both. You can give that feedback that you would traditionally give, but then students can get feedback in the moment from these tools. And I think that this is just the tip of the iceberg with writing feedback. I think that some of these AI tools, regardless of the competency or the domain you're in, it's really going to tighten up that feedback loop and how quickly they can get that feedback. And we know like the quicker we can get good feedback to students, the better. Like there's research that shows undoubtedly how important quick feedback is for students, and this could definitely help with that. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff out there. Now, Catherine's going to spend a little bit of time thinking through, like, all right, so there's a lot of use cases. There's now like hundreds of AI tools coming out for education. How do I navigate this? What are some of the questions that I should be asking?
Right. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, so there's so many different, tools that are out there, and there's a bunch of different, people that are putting out there like ways to think about, well, how do I figure out the tool that's right for us? So we, being former classroom teachers, we put our, put those hats right back on and figure out what's an easy way that we can help you figure out, well, what's going to be the right tool for you. So what we did was we actually created an infographic. So you can either scan the QR code or you can type in the bit.ly link and then you'll get access to that. So this is something that we created so that you can try and figure out, well, how do we make sense of all this stuff that's coming out there and find really what's right for us in our classrooms. So the answer that, or the idea that I want to start with is that we need to start with intention. So really think about, well, what is it that we need the tech tool to solve? So it's we're the drivers of the decision. We're not letting the tools determine what we're doing. We're figuring out this is what I want. How can the tool get me to that point? So that goes back to my passion and focus, which is meaningful learning with technology. So with this AI evaluation tool, we have some questions that we put together for you to think about. So in terms of teaching and learning, some of the questions that you might want to ask about is, well, how does this tool align with our curriculum and learning objectives? So does it complement our existing instruction, or does it add a layer of distraction, which we actually don't want it to do, right? What problem is this AI tool solving? So is it for boosting reading proficiency? Is it to provide personalized feedback, or is it something else? Or does this problem even need to be solved with an AI tool? Do we just go the human route and it's just faster, it's just easier, for that, time and place? How does this tool support different types of learners? So does it offer accessibility features? Does it promote an inclusive environment? Does it include diverse perspectives in its content? The next question is, how will this tool enhance, not replace, human interaction and critical thinking? So how can it be used to promote higher order thinking skills, creativity, and problem solving? And then the last question for this one is, how will student learning be assessed with this tool? Will assignments need to be revised? How can we ensure that students are using this tool ethically and not for plagiarism? So, and we'll get to this, I'm sure, at a different webinar, and Tom might want to chime in here, but I know with the assessment piece and with students using AI, we know they're using it increasingly more, year by year, is the idea of cheating and plagiarism, but it's all about designing the learning experience and figuring out how can the tool support that meaningful learning experience. So yes, assessments may need to change to some extent, right? Because AI it's good, but we have to figure out how to make it meaningful for students. All right, I digress.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, I'm gonna a couple of things that you mentioned that I want to double down
okay.
on. First is the accessibility piece. AI tools have incredible ability to make things more accessible. However, what I've found is that in the race to get some of these things to market, some of these companies are cutting corners when it comes to accessibility. So you shouldn't have to put up with that, right? So that's such an especially when you're dealing with students in schools like that would be one of the first things. Like, yes, this is a great tool, but is it accessible? Can multiple people access this in different modalities? Is it compliant? Is it so? I think that that's a big part of it. And then two, with the learning, how will students be assessed, and how is that part of the instructional design? Um, I'll tell you what the answer isn't: just buying an AI detection software. Don't waste your money, right? So if you're watching this and your school district's buying AI detection software to catch kids cheating, save your money. You might as well just light it on fire. That's not going to solve this issue. It's an instructional design challenge, and that's what we need to do. And also, we'll get to this later too when we talk about like the student learning experience. Are we giving students the opportunity to use AI in ethical and responsible ways in our classrooms? And that's how we're going to model effective use. And that's going to be a big part of this is not, again, not just catching kids using it the wrong way, but modeling and providing ways for them to use it in a positive way. So that was my soapbox moment, Catherine. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Tom. All right, so the next thing to think about when you're considering, well, is this the right AI tool for me? Are the ethical considerations and potential bias? So, is this tool built for educational use or for the general public? Because that does make a difference, right? That goes back to the Conmigo safe garden that students are in, or safe ecosystem, versus something like ChatGPT that was created for the general public to use. So, you want to think about how can or how does this tool specifically support teaching and learning? Okay. I'm not saying that tools like ChatGPT won't work. It's just that it just makes a difference if a tool was built specifically for education versus for general use. The second question, this is something that I really have been like focusing on, is how transparent is this tool? Can we understand how the AI tool makes its decisions or generates its responses? Because if we don't know how it got to that, we're gonna be in trouble because like I said, that data that's in the middle, it's been, we don't really know until it gets the output, and then we have to figure out, is that output accurate? How accurate is it? And we're going to actually cover more of this in an upcoming webinar. The third question is, how can we ensure that this tool is used equitably? So will all students have equal access to this tool, or could it exacerbate existing digital divides? And I think this one's going to be a big question that we're going to be grappling with for, unfortunately, a few more years at least. All right. So the third thing to think about in terms of, is this AI tool right for me, is to look at the practical implementation and support bucket. So how user-friendly is this tool for both teachers and students? So is it intuitive? Will it easily integrate into existing teaching and learning practices? Because we certainly don't want to make learning and teaching harder, right? We want to make sure that the technology tool is supporting what we're already trying to do in the classroom. How well does this tool integrate with our existing technology? So is it compatible with your current learning management system? Are you able to use your school's single sign-on, or do you have to create another email like login credential thing? The third one is, what is the plan for ongoing evaluation and adjustment? And this isn't necessarily an individual teacher thing. This is more of a collective stakeholder talking about how will the school monitor this tool's effectiveness and issues as they arise. So this is all about everyone coming into this very important conversation about an AI tool's integration into teaching and learning. All right, so now we're going to move on to actually towards now about time to wrap up. So I'm going to turn it back over to Tom.
All right, thanks, Catherine. Yes, we're in the home stretch, everybody. So thanks for hanging in there. I think now that we've covered, what is AI, how did we kind of get to this place, how are teachers using it, and some things to look out for. Now it's time to just get started to try something, right? So the first thing is to think about your mindset towards this. If you're going to get started with AI or just get a little bit deeper with it as a teacher, the first thing that we like to think of is frame AI as a partner, right? And there's actually a study that I read not too long ago that's all about using AI to really just kind of be like your instructional design assistant, right? So we use that a lot with our teachers. So it's you're the expert in the room, but think of this as someone who also can help you come up with ideas, come up with different resources. Think of it as a partner, not a replacement. And then we're still learning, right? So this is really, we're experimenting with some of these new tools and strategies as we go. And something that I learned when we were doing action research cycles in the school districts I was in is, have a clear instructional approach that you want to do, pick a tool, see if it's actually having the impact you're looking for. And if it's not working, you can pivot quickly, right? So this is the time where if, for instance, I just talked to a school that said, oh, we're going to do a 2 year evaluation of this AI tool. And I'm like, at the end of the 2 years, this tool is going to look nothing like you started, right? So you should probably tighten up that window that you're going to test this. So I think we need to think of this as a partner, but also something that we are rapidly iterating and evolving as we go. So we're all learning this together. And there was a teacher earlier this week working with me, and she said to me, she's like, Tom, I feel like so far behind with this technology. And I said to her, I was like, don't worry, we're all in the same boat. This is new for everybody. Even the most techie teacher, generative AI, still only came out a couple years ago, even for the most advanced teacher. So, in a way, it's kind of like some solidarity in that we're all learning this together. So, have some comfort in that, like, even if you're just starting this, you're not far behind because we're all learning this as we go. And then also try it. We really do feel like you learn this stuff by doing it, by trying, not just talking about it. You got to dig in and try. So whenever we do on-site workshops with schools, at least half the time is doing something, like getting in with a tool, trying things, designing things. So if you want to try something like an AI tutor, you could use Conmigo or use one of the built-in tutor prompts that you could use with Gemini or ChatGPT or one of those other tools. You want to try a graphic design tool? You could try something like Adobe Express or Canva that have AI integrations. If you want to use it into part of your daily workflow, you could use something like Gemini and Google Classroom, or you could use a tool like Magic School, or even Conmigo has some teacher tools built in for free as well. If you wanted to explore things like, writing feedback, you could try a tool like Newsella. The point is just try one of them, pick one of them, experiment, and then also get feedback from students. I feel like the student voice in this is often missing. And especially when we have some high school students now that know way more about this than the teachers do, we should be including them in these conversations, right? So when you try some of these things in the classroom, get some feedback from the students. See, how they like utilizing these tools and if they have any suggestions on use cases that maybe we're not looking at, thinking about. So we've covered a lot of ground. We like to always end with a visible thinking routine called Connect, Extend, Challenge. We don't always use this particular routine, but we like to use one to get us thinking about the session. So after this session today, think about how does this already connect to some of your knowledge of good teaching and learning? Because again, that's what this is based on, right? So it starts with great teaching and learning and how can AI amplify the impact of those good teaching practices? So what do you already know about good teaching and how can AI amplify the impact of that? Second, what new ideas extended your thinking or extended your understanding about AI in the classroom? And then lastly, what are some things that you still have questions about? So what challenges or questions about utilizing AI remain for you? We do have that Q&A feature in the chat. So if anyone has a question for me and Catherine, feel free to add that there now. But we're also going to open up a final poll question as well. And that's how do you envision leveraging AI to enhance your instructional practice? All right, so we'll just give you a minute or two there. I'm going to open that poll up. Go to three. Oops, I got to close the second one first. Okay, so if you're in the webinar, I just launched the third one. It's just an open-ended question. How do you envision leveraging it in your practice? It could be any one of those entry points or one of them that maybe we haven't covered yet. If you're watching this on the archive, maybe just jot something down or make a note. What is one thing that you would like to practice? Another visible thinking routine we do is Monday someday thinking, meaning what could you try right now? What's a Monday idea? And maybe what's something someday you could try later on. And don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just try something that could be maybe a quick win, just get comfortable with it, and then think about how you can build upon that over time.
And then as you're taking a moment to either drop this off to the side if you're watching this after the live session or if you're in the live session still typing, I just wanted to add that as a teacher, and even though I'm not formally in the classroom, I still work with teachers, so I still consider myself a teacher. It's all about honing your craft. So none of us are, I don't think good teachers are ever really finished, right? We're always trying to find ways to make what we do more effective, with whether we're working with adult learners or students that are still in the classroom. So this idea of generative AI and its integration in teaching and learning to me is it's a little scary because it's still to some extent uncertain, but it's also very exciting because it gives you another opportunity to figure out, how can I actually use this to make teaching more efficient for me, but also learning more fun and engaging for my students. So just wanted to throw that out. Teaching is a creative process, and I think generative AI is going to be a great avenue for that. Right.
Well said, Catherine.
Did you see
Thank
the
you so
answers
much.
coming in?
Uh, yes, but I don't know how to get to the short answer questions, so I'll need to look back through and see how to do that. But after the webinar, we'll be able to check
Okay.
that out. Okay, so the last step is we want you to make sure you get the credit that you have coming to you. So by watching this webinar, by engaging in this today, whether it was live with us today or whether it was after, you can actually download and get a completed certificate for this session. So to do that, you're actually going to scroll down from where you got into this webinar. So the webinar link was at the top. When you scroll down, you're going to see a section that says e-learning webinar, understanding AI. You're going to click that. Then you will click Mark Complete. Once you click that gray box, you're going to see a pop-up and it will say how long was it? It'll already say 1 hour. Click Submit. Then you have your certificate. So right where it has actions at the top, once you're done, there's a little drop down. You can print out your certificate. It'll also be in your completed learning. And I highly encourage you to explore the platform. So since you've already signed up and logged in to get access to this webinar, feel free to explore many of the courses that we're building. A lot of them are specific to teachers that we're building right now, and we're actually going to have many more of those throughout the year that we build out. But there's also a robust library of lessons and activities that you can use with your students in all different areas of AI and education and other tech areas as well. And I also got to do a shout out. You can have students use this too, right? So if you go in here and you're like, hey, I teach, this particular course, to teach cloud computing in my CTE class. There's actually a certificate for cloud computing that IBM grants for students. You could have them go in and do this as well. So this is a platform for you to learn and to upskill, but also feel free to share this with your colleagues that have students that may want to go in and learn some of these high-tech skills as well. And we're going to keep this rolling. So this is the first of a 7-part webinar series. So we're going to be going through to December. The next one coming up is going to be on October 6th. That's on making smart choices, a teacher's guide to AI ethics. We know that's going to be a popular one because that is such a important issue facing educators right now as they grapple with some of these new things. So we really hope that you can join us then. Even if you can't, feel free to go to our website and register for it. So if you go to edtechteacher.org/skills, you can sign up for that as well as any other webinar coming up throughout the fall and early winter. You can sign up for them now and enroll and always come back to it. You could also enroll, get that Zoom link, save it somewhere else, come back to it anytime. As long as you have that link, you're good to go. And also, while you're at the website, I mentioned it a little earlier, we also will provide live training, right? So if you are a school or an organization that would like us to provide some live AI training for teachers, as long as we can get a group of about 25 together, we can provide those. We have a strong team that would love to work with you. So feel free to reach out to us at any time. There's a form there. You can just fill it out. We'll get in touch with you and we would be happy to provide some live training to you and your schools. All right, so that just about does it. We'd like to thank everybody for joining today. Feel free to reach out. Again, I'm Driscoll at edtechteacher.org. And then it's Catherine at edtechteacher.org, I believe,
It
right?
is.
So reach out to Catherine. We'd love to chat with you, even if it's just to ask a few questions, hop on a call. We love this stuff. We love to work with teachers, so do not hesitate to reach out. Our goal is to make you more comfortable and confident with edtech, and anything we can do, we would love to support you and your efforts. Catherine, any final thoughts?
No, well, actually, just we hope we see you on October 6th. So just make sure you sign up and bring your questions because we would love to be able to field those, answer them, learn along with you. Because remember, this is all new for all of us, and it's changing at a very rapid pace. But we're excited.
All right. Thank you all so much. Have a great night.
Night, everyone.